Hopefully everybody who's in attendance is aware of exactly what this panel is about. It's about the Black hero. Can we kill the music? We can get to that. Give me a second. Alright. So here's Alright, now we're back on. We had a little hiccup from another panel, but I think we're solid now.
Is your camera take pictures in the dark and stuff? Nah, not really. That's why you're shuffle lights. Someone to show so people can
facilitate a little
go ahead.
on exactly what makes up
your turn, but go later,
in our culture. Going all the way back from the start of the Black hero as a means of sidekick or as someone who may be looked at as something less. So first, we're going to try to understand exactly how that became what it was. And to do that, we're going to start at the top. His name is Nat. All right. Anybody, you guys weren't familiar, or anybody not familiar? Nat Turner. Somebody want to fill in, or who doesn't? Who is Nat Turner?
Nat Turner was a slave who led a rebellion, and in the process of his rebellion, he ended up killing a lot of folks. A nice handful of like
55. All right. And the reason I wanted to start with Nat Turner is to understand the Black hero. You kind of got to understand the Black man in America. If you're someone who is familiar with the Black experience, or someone who's part of the Black experience, you might often catch yourself hearing about a term called the angry Black man. The angry Black man is a concept that has followed a lot of us, for good or bad. And I think a lot of it might have to do with something like that happening. All right. Because, well, when you think about somebody who might come into your house, take your woman, chop your head off, I don't know if you're necessarily thinking too many heroic aspects are tied to that type of person. Which leads us to, indirectly, what I like to call the beginning of the Black hero, Uncle Tom era. Okay. We have two prime examples of what I feel really captures exactly what to start with. That's Mandrake, Lothar, and the Spirit of Ebony White. Anybody in here familiar with these characters? Okay. Well, these were some of the first serialized comic book characters that had large followings, and as you can see, in both of these cases, you had white heroes that had Black sidekicks that really had some of the things that I feel like were led directly from Nat Turner, the idea of the angry Black man, and that's to make them a lesser being, be it a servant, a child, who often looks like a minstrel character, and in that you can see that it's less human, and it really doesn't really try to even capture us as an equal part, because at that point, clearly in many people's eyes, we weren't. Now, my understanding is, because I wasn't living during that time, is that these characters were beloved. I see them now, and you might see them, and you might think, like, how could somebody even put that, that caricature out to the public and think it's cool? But back then, it's an understandable thing, because that's about as far as the thought process went. It wasn't something that even had to be questioned, because it was looked at as fact. Now, again, going back to where we started with Nat Turner, I believe that they in fact knew that was not fact, but it was easier to project the Black man as something that was weaker than to accept a friend that can sometimes be scary. All right, before we get to the next slide, is there any person out there who feels comfortable coming up and possibly giving, it's just a one word or a quick, answer to what you see when you see someone like Ebony right in the corner with the spirit. Anybody?
One word comes to mind.
One word.
Monkey.
Anybody else? Is that the first word most people thought of? Because I always see that's the first word I thought of when I saw the picture. I was like, that kid looking like a monkey. Like,
it was the first, but kind of the second thought was those are the defenders of the earth. And that's like how they started.
right. Original man. But anyway, as you can see, there was a lot of work to be done. Now, following this era, it was a long period of time where this was the norm and it was an accepted thing. But during the 1960s, as anybody who's old enough or anybody who's read a bit picked up, something called Black Power came into play. And this changed the way we view black people because it made an impact that was larger than one person. It was an impact about the whole.
What year was this?
It depends. The Spirit was. I had my notes. It's a bad.
Spirit's like 1954.
Earlier.
Yeah.
40s. Yeah, 40s. It was 40s. Yeah, always 40s. It's 40s. Yeah. For both of them. And it was. While that wasn't as far back as you would think that these type of images would be allowed, it's like we're not nearly as far as, a lot of people want to say we are.
There are some positive portrayals that if you look to folklore, the John Henry stories, things like that.
Right. Absolutely. And stories like John Henry, while completely positive in their portrayal of a persistent effort by black men, it still was a caricature, an extreme portrayal of the working man, the slave man. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like he was we weren't going to be, it wasn't going to, we couldn't read, so we weren't going to be doctors and lawyers. That was, out of the blue, so that wasn't going to be the case. But he wasn't using his mind. It was simply brute force, which also led directly or can be connected to Nat Turner. A brute with no head that had one goal, either that being killing all white people in front of him or using to his last breath, all of his strength to beat on the ship.
Actually, I gotta pick that a little bit because John Henry comes out of the Civil War, and Civil War was the period where the national funds for the National Railroad were established. Right. When the National Railroad was completed, one of the things they wanted to do, they wanted to bring this positive experience with sort of the cause of the Civil War. Right. And so John Henry is supposed to be this noble black man, right, who, and this is still a caricature, but it's not a caricature. He's this noble black man who sacrifices to, sort of make the country whole. Like, right. He drives the last strike, right? He dies to make the country whole. Right. So it's not quite like he's.
Oh no, absolutely. I feel like there are positives within it, but I also feel like to strictly look at the positive would be to defeat the purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is John Henry was portrayed nobly, but he was still standing in the way of the industrial progress. Right. And like you say, he's not using his mind.
Right. Absolutely. And as
he dies.
And he dies. He's dead. So, yeah. Any other thoughts before we? Oh, because all right, we'll touch on it a little bit more. You got to understand when you're viewed as something that is one-dimensional, regardless of how positive it is, it's not a whole picture, and it can only do harm, in my opinion, because we're all three-dimensional beings: black, white, Middle Eastern, Asian. Every person is a three-dimensional being that has far more than something like this. All right, but following this era, I like to look at what the House of Ideas Marvel did in trying to redefine what the black hero was. All right, we tried to, limit it down to, 4 main characters. You got Blade, Brother Voodoo, Black Panther, and Luke Cage, Power Man. Familiar with these characters?
Yes.
Oh yeah. What's up?
Black Condor was in there too.
Black Condor as well. I tried to limit it for
Falcon.
Give me more. Give me more. Storm.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Bishop.
Bishop came with him. Who else?
Oh, Deathlock.
Deathlock. That's a good one.
Bishop.
No, it's important to mention and remember though that Luke Cage was hero for hire.
Absolutely.
Before he was powered.
Yeah, he was.
And that's just kind
Hero
of
for hire number 1 in Fire.
Marvel version of Shaq.
Sweet Christmas.
Well, we got Blade. I didn't want to get into too many seriously specifics because we all know what Blade is. We all know Wesley Snipes. He's the man. And if that's the only thing that we ever saw from Blade, that would actually be enough. Let's be honest. It was super dope. But, first appearance in Shin Dracula number 10. Been in movies, the show, animated is not that great. I tried to give it chances. And if any babies in here, I won't repeat it, and I hope you cats can't read it. That's who he was. Now, to specify, the thoughts on Blade, because I wanted to have this be a organic thing, so I didn't want to write too much out there for us, so we could actually, roll with this together. My theory on Blade is that since he lived in 2 worlds, it was always a conscious thing for Marvel to look at Blade as someone who, while enjoying the benefits of one world, had to also deny them as well. Now, the black experience of the black hero, how would you feel like as a black person just in this room right now? It's like, okay, you can do everything you want. You can for real be the most ignorant person going. You can live the life that, has made many people's millions, and you can do all that, but you also have to be someone who at any second could snap, could lose itself, could lose control. Now, while the positives again are great, superhuman powers, immortality, bad mofo, you got a whole bunch of baggage. And while, you can see that he's an awesome cat, the baggage that you carry is baggage that's real. Even if it's just, being a vampire.
I think one thing that's also very interesting about Blade, especially with being half vampire, is that he has to kill what he is in order to be considered safe among others.
Right.
And the fact that it's a black character that can kill his
own kind
in order to be considered safe by the rest of the population.
To be considered good, not evil. All right. Brother Voodoo. Any of y'all familiar with Brother Voodoo? Yeah. Tell me about Brother Voodoo. It's embarrassing. It's kind of embarrassing, right? He works in the current incarnation of Brother Voodoo that has become Sorcerer Supreme of the Marvel Universe. There's a lot that has been made positive, but at the beginning he was as much a caricature as anything that happened during the early eras of comics. When you see a character who has these sort of markings, this sort of dress, what is the first thing you think of? You think of a savage, right? You think of a savage. All right. Now, if you're a hero and a savage, isn't that something that's kind of, fighting that one? It's tough, right?
Yeah.
Now, even with these first 2 characters, you can already see that they have characters that are fighting against themselves as much as they're fighting the villains who are trying to, keep us safe. Difficult life.
Just so much the caricature of like the magical black man, like
the voodoo doctor.
Right. Like the Green Mile or whatever.
I mean, the mystical black man in movies, in cinema, in media is one of the most lasting characters that it'll be there past all of us in this room. Like for every, Will Smith, there's a Bagger Vance waiting to get you chucked on. All right. It's gonna be there. So, all right. This is T'Challa. This is my dude. Right here. This is the Black Panther. Now, out of these four right here, and I'll just, speak frank, I feel like it's the most positive representation. Absolutely. Thoughts before we move further?
The Black man's fantasy.
The Black man's fantasy. He's his own king. He has his own land, and
It's never been conquered.
never been conquered. More advanced technology than any place in the world.
I remember him because I had older brothers, so when I was young, I remember right around the first times I saw him, I was so proud because he was like strong with his 70s, This was something that he never really saw on TV at the time. It wasn't a drug dealer who was supposed to be saving the neighborhood for selling drugs at the same time.
Absolutely.
But just like with Brother Voodoo recently has been killed. They brought the character to prominence and they killed him. Now with Black Panther, the Hunter series was great. But then Marvel said, we're going to get rid of that pesky African stuff and make him Daredevil. And now he sucks.
They took his powers, they killed him, they put the vibranium, took the vibranium, they raped the land.
Instead of when they brought him to prominence, they made him a king. His issue in Civil War when he called in all the other kings, to fight against Magneto, that was great. The thing, with Doom War was great. Then it was like, oh no, we don't know what to do. He married Storm.
Beautiful black couple.
Yeah, they put a lot of work.
Beautiful. But then what happens? We need to separate for a second, baby. I need to figure myself out.
Have you
said that before? I said it before.
To be fair, it's none of that here.
I got the microphone, so yes it is.
I think the important point to make is that they sort of gave Black Panther as the exception. He's the token. And then also another good point is that he's not African American, he's African.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
So the African Americans,
with African, in certain instances, we often have a black versus African American discussion, at least in my neck of the woods. And as you'll often hear, you'll often say, well, African people can come to America and be able to move forward in a more, in a less restricted way. Let's just put it that way. So when you brought that up, it's important because you have to realize that he is in fact an African who's come to America and had success, but he's also, the Black Panther. So I want to stick back into the positive nature of his character as well. Have any of you guys ever had a chance to check out the Black Panther animated series?
It's on Netflix, actually.
Yeah, it is on Netflix. It is. It's a really good series. And now, for any of you guys who haven't had a chance to check this series out, this was a series that was supposed to make its way to BET a couple years back. And
That says it.
That says it, right?
That says it right there.
All right. And the service in here, Wi-Fi won't allow for me to show any videos of it right now. I didn't have a chance to save any of the videos, so everyone's still, and it's tough to find it anymore. But basically, in this series, it looked at Reginald Hudlin's, take on Black Panther and showed him, coming from, being the son of a king to being a king himself and moving forward. Check it out when you have a chance. Go to YouTube, go to Netflix, check it out. It's a really good series. And before I move away from Black Panther, I just wanted to really talk about his relationship in the show to the United States. In the Black Panther show, the relationship between Wakanda, Black Panther's whole nation, and the United States is very strained. It's a nation at war sort of thing, where the United States is using black ops and all these types of nefarious actions to try to seek the control and the minerals and riches of the Wakandan kingdom. And even though it went politically left, like kind of strong left in the series, you can see just the view of what, again, being a black hero is. It's like, okay, you're trying to do good. You're an avenger. You're an avenger. You kick it with Captain America, but for whatever reason, we still view you as a threat. So, as we're seeing just with these, Brother Voodoo, Blade, Black Panther, regardless of the good you're doing, regardless of the action that you're actually taking, there still might be an element of you being viewed as a threat for no good reason.
I think we also could look at his relationship with the Fantastic Four.
Right.
Definitely, he's more comfortable with them than anybody else in the American Marvel universe. And even with Civil War, where he was not allowed on American soil because him being totally cut off from the superhero fight and not wanting to choose sides and not like he was government was doing. And that definitely shows like how he's more so, and because he's very arrogant too. How he's definitely
he's a king. He's not supposed to bow.
Right. I think when he comes in contact with most American heroes in Marvel, except for Luke Cage, which is totally different, he is often held in disdain.
Right. Well,
heroes.
His initial appearance in Fantastic Four Volume 1, number 52, he came in trying to, capture members of the Fantastic Four. His first appearance was almost in villainy. He was doing it for whatever reasons to, gauge their strengths, see if they were worthy for whatever reasons. But as you can see, even in his introduction, there was an element of this scary black man is about to tear some stuff up.
Just as you're explaining it now, I'm hearing a lot of similarities with Namor. Do you think they maybe just recycled him?
Namor's black too.
Well, seriously, if you want to get into the discussion, it possibly did. And Atlantis was the home of a advanced civilization off the coast of Africa with dark-skinned people that was destroyed out of fear. Then yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
I just looked at the volume 1, number 52 of the Black Panther earlier today out on the floor. And when you should go back and just look at that cover. For that cover to be an introduction of a strong black character, today it even just wowed me when I looked at it because the prominence that they gave Black Panther on that cover, I was like, oh. Even the cover was like, this is not going to be your
average. Yeah. No sidekicks. And as you see, Marvel, and I think Stan Lee and the guys over at Marvel should get a lot of credit for being able to produce strong black characters. And do so consistently. So, shout out to them.
I think it's not completely altruistic. I mean, they were far number 2 in markets, so they had to look to do something else than what DC was doing.
Right, it was a business move. But I feel like oftentimes capitalism can be a positive, engine to, change in the social, aspects of our world. So, however it works out. All right. So Luke Cage. First appearance Heroes for Hire number 1. He's not Power Man. He's married, the married black hero, family, right? He's a fried chicken arm fist, shrimp fried rice. That's how we refer to him. Okay. Y'all just got it. All right. Now we touched on it earlier, but Luke Cage, Heroes for Hire. What do you think of when you hear for hire?
Mercenary.
Temporary. What's up?
Greedy.
Money first. Who said indentured? Servitude. All right. Contract.
Expendable.
Angry black man.
Look at
it. Entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur. Who said Home Depot?
The same thing.
If I remember correctly, I mean, he was confused. He just broke out of jail.
Had broke out of jail. Funky gear.
They
that stuff was cool back then, though. I was gonna stay away from that because, like the Mac, I grew up with that.
And he used to wear.
Who?
He used to wear a chain.
No, the TR wasn't cool. The TR was just old.
Oh, he had a chain for a belt.
Had a chain for a belt. All right. Now, Luke Cage has been one of the characters that has evolved a great deal since his introduction. His manner of speaking. Completely changed. If they would have kept that going, though, eventually they would have got sued or something. But, he's gone from being a hero for hire to a defender, a short-term member of the Avengers, has, married, had a child, has done a lot of things in the Marvel Universe that at his initial character creation point, I'm sure nobody thought was going to be possible. And what I believe and what I, kind of feel with the character like Luke Cage is it shows just how far, African Americans have come, in terms of our own perception.
You mentioned how Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created the Black Panther. Some of the best evolution from Luke Cage was in the 70s when Chris Claremont and John Byrne were doing the character. And not only did they bring Luke Cage and Iron Fist together, they also had this great female support character, Misty Knight, who was best friends with Jean Grey. And it was some of the most I won't say three-dimensional, but some of the most realistic kind of views of a black woman, a normal black woman who wasn't like a superhero, and they also evolved what Luke Cage was from the 70s blaxploitation.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is it's actually really interesting to think about the fact. I was going to say the same thing. The other thing I was going to say is really interesting to think about. He was created as a sort of two-dimensional blaxploitation character, and then a Jewish writer, Chris Claremont, sort of fleshed him out and made him more human. And this incarnation is Brian Michael Bendis, another Jewish writer who happens to be a huge Tupac fan. And so, Bendis is trying to blend.
And Lee and Kirby were both Jewish too.
I said that right. And so it's to me it's interesting how all of this like we're not writing these characters ourselves. Thankfully, these two sort of humanistic writers turned him into something that wasn't a laughing stock, but said something.
I'm gonna make a quick little sidebar for a second. You can look at hip hop. Look at a lot of the founders of hip hop and the hip hop movement. Rick Rubin, the guys who are running down lyrical, and you see a lot of guys who are not, they're not up on their pigment game, as but their understanding is enough for them to be able to, move the characters forward. And would you prefer him to still be saying?
No, not at all.
So that's the real deal.
Yeah. I think another sign of how far things have come is that a character like Luke Cage can marry a white woman and it's no problem. Everyone, and that's great.
So.
Going back to Will Eisner, who's also a Jewish writer, in the days of the early Jewish creators who had to hide their Judaism also. And back in the days where I'm going to use a very politically incorrect term in this where Jews were seen as nigger lovers. You have to
NAACP help.
Will Eisner is seen as a huge advocate for Jewish culture, mostly later in his career, and is a huge example. But that's like his shame point of making that one character. You have to wonder if that was also like him trying to
separate himself from being a nigger lover.
Yeah, and you really had to fit into those images also. But I'm not going to justify that image either.
I think it's less about justification and more about rationalization. Because we got to be mindful of the time period that these people are living in. It wasn't we're still fighting for freedom, all of us. But it wasn't the most free period, because if he would have made a positive black character, he might have lost his career. He might have been, put on the list where you never came back from. So.
Just a thing on Isaac, he actually did create a more positive black character later on that actually took Ebony's girlfriend, infiltrated Ebony, and then he stuck a white kid in the script that was kind of slow with it. So I think Will Isaac really didn't like kids too much.
I mean, how the betrayal.
I think he was also a mentor to Ray Billingsley. He does the Curtis comic strip.
Right.
So just to say one of the racist or anything like that.
Well, the portrayal of both Lothar and Ebony White has been, you know, updated to make them less of what they were, while still making them like the rationalization I with Lothar was that he was considered an equal. He was someone who worked beside him, and he wasn't a sidekick. But y'all saw him carrying those bags, and equals don't carry bags. So, all right. All right, let's check this out. All right, before, you know, we got a few more minutes. Before we get out of here, I made this up today. My laptop broke last night, which had my entire rest of my PowerPoint. It pains me that I don't have a chance to really show you guys the visual of this, but I wanted to show a true representation of all the black heroes that have come, you know, great and small, characters from Spawn to Mantis. We got Mantis fans out there. Anybody remember Mantis? And I just, you know, I wanted you guys to try to, if anybody, you know, would like to share, what do you think thoughts going forward are, you know, for the growth of black heroes? Like,
I think it's going backwards.
How so?
Well, like I said.